Just as the tiger was about to devour the tuna, the boy immediately grabbed a stick and shoved it right in the tiger's face. As they struggled against each other, the boy let out a roar. The tiger was startled by the boy's fierce attitude, and the boy seized the opportunity to use his hatchet to fling the tuna onto his side of the boat. This was the first time Pi had snatched food right out of the tiger's mouth. Though clearly reluctant, the tiger settled for eating the small fish on the boat. That night, Pi cleaned the tuna and wolfed it down. After this confrontation, Pi realized one thing clearly. If he wanted to survive, he had to tame the tiger on the boat. Soon, Pi began his taming journey. He grabbed a stick and started training the tiger. Pi pulled out a piece of fish from behind him and held it out to the tiger on the stick. Faced with the food before it, the tiger gradually let down its guard and began eating the fish contentedly. Then Pi tossed another piece on the other side, guiding the tiger back into the cabin. But the tiger remained defiant and tried to threaten Pi, so Pi gathered his courage and yelled. The tiger finally retreated below deck. But the weather at sea is always unpredictable, and suddenly a violent storm swept over them. Who knows how long it lasted, but when Pi finally woke up, the tiger, ravaged by the storm, was barely clinging to life. Pi took the last of his fresh water from the sea, looked at the dying tiger before him, and ultimately chose to give all that water to the tiger. Then he placed the tiger's head on his lap. He and the tiger had been drifting at sea for half a year, but this time they could only calmly wait for death to arrive. Who knows how long it was before Pi woke up again to find the boat stopped beside a floating island. He hurried off the boat, dug up a green root, and stuffed it straight into his mouth. Then he headed toward the center of the island. The island was populated with meerkats. Sensing the boy's arrival, they all lifted their heads and looked at him curiously. The meerkats didn't attack the boy, so without hesitation, he jumped into the water and happily drank from the pool. The tiger was also nearby enjoying its food. Strangely, the meerkats didn't run away, but instead watched the tiger with curiosity. When night fell, all the meerkats seemed frightened and ran into the forest, and even the tiger ran back to the boat. Pi suddenly woke during the night, and when he crawled over for a closer look, he saw all kinds of debris floating in the pool. The water had turned into a highly corrosive liquid. The tiger sat quietly on the boat, not daring to approach this glowing island. Pi casually picked a flower, and when he pulled apart the petals, he found a human tooth inside. He immediately understood this was a carnivorous island. The next morning, Pi loaded green roots and meerkats into the boat, then called to the tiger, who wisely returned to the boat. This island, shrouded in mystery and danger, had saved both Pi and the tiger. Once again, they began drifting. Afterward, Pi learned to catch fish, which became his and the tiger's food source going forward. A large fish slowly fell into his trap. He quickly tightened the fishing net, grabbed the nearby hatchet, and brought it down hard. Watching the fish gradually lose its color, the boy finally couldn't help but cry. Then he threw the fish to the tiger. They continued drifting at sea for another half year. The raft crossed almost the entire Atlantic Ocean, and finally they were lucky enough to reach shore. The boy collapsed on the ground, utterly exhausted. Soon the tiger jumped off the boat too. Without acknowledging the boy, it walked into the forest without looking back. A few hours later, villagers found the boy. When he woke up, the boy couldn't help but cry. He wasn't crying because he'd been rescued, but because after everything he and the tiger had been through together, the tiger just walked away without even looking back. Have you ever experienced emotional betrayal? If you had to do it all over again, would you still choose to save the tiger? Follow me to watch more amazing movie clips.